In 1916, during his very first year in Anchorage, the Anchorage Daily Times wrote the following: Joe Spenard caused considerable excitement Saturday afternoon when he attempted to drive his yellow car through the doors of Robarts Pool Hall. He made the attempt for a box of cigars promised to him by Jack Robarts. If he accomplished the feat, otherwise he was going to have to pay for the damages. Joe is still smoking his pipe. Joseph Joe Arthur Spenard was born in 1879 in Ottawa, Canada. Around 1906, he married Edith Llewellyn. In 1909, Spenard and his wife arrived in Valdez, where he opened a second-hand business. When things got slow, he pushed a handcart filled with merchandise through the streets. The pushcart developed into a transfer business in 1913, which he advertised as City Express, a delivery and taxi service. Joe and his wife moved to Anchorage in 1916, when it was still a tent city, where Joe continued his City Express service. He used an REO truck and attached a sign to his radiator with bright yellow letters: "Time and tide will not wait, but City Express is never late." Always a showman, Spenard would run ads like the following that appeared in the Anchorage Daily Times on June 26, 1916. Of all the cars, both big and small, the yellow car just beats them all. Complete satisfaction, nothing less, is given by the City Express. Yes, Joe Spenard bought a yellow suit with a matching plug hat and wore the rather gaudy outfit on special occasions and really as often as he could. On May 1916, the Cook Inlet Pioneer, later the Anchorage Daily News, reported the following: The genial, fun-loving Joe Spenard played the part of Santa Claus to about 100 school children yesterday. Joe, dressed in his famous yellow suit with top hat to match, took the youngsters in relays for an auto ride through the streets of Anchorage, and judging from the smile Joe wore and the singing and laughter of the children, the pleasure was mutual. About 5 miles out of town was a lake, known as Jeter Lake, which was an unofficial title. It was named after a homesteader named Thomas Jeter. But the lake was in Chugach National Forest and was closed to homesteading. Thomas Jeter had to move. Not long after, the land was open to homesteading, and Joe Spenard took up 160 acres as a homestead that included the lake. Spenard set out to develop the lake and the surrounding land into a full-scale resort, complete with a roadhouse, bathhouses, and a bathing beach. Needing access to his resort, Joe Spenard persuaded members of the local Anchorage Elks Club to help him cut trees and build a trail from 9th Avenue and L Street across Chester and Fish Creek valleys to the lake. The trail is now Spenard Road. Joe's Spenard Lake and Dance Pavilion became very popular with Anchorage residents. But on the night of May 24, 1917, a fire, thought to be set by careless hunters, completely destroyed Joe's houses, dance pavilion, picnic area, and other improvements. Health problems caused Joe to sell his yellow car and business ventures. The Spenards left for the lower 48 in 1917. For the winter, with plans to return in the spring. But they never did. The lake continued to be a popular summer and winter place for recreation for Anchorage residents. In the winter, Spenard Beach Park, as it was called, was a popular place to ice skate, and in the summer, as many as 800 local residents and visitors would swim there on weekends. In 1923, President Warren G. Harding became the very first U.S. president to visit Alaska. President Harding came to dedicate the Alaska Railroad, but while he was in Anchorage, he spent part of an afternoon at Spenard Lake. In 1975, Spenard was a separate city and Anchorage's largest suburb. Between 1935 and 1950, Spenard's population went from 3,000 to 47,000 residents. And in 1949, the first post office was established in Spenard. That story follows. In 1949, the sign on the Quonset hut building reads Post Office, Spenard, Alaska. This was the very first building on the corner of Spenard Road and Fireweed. A second building was added later on, and a building that is now home to Chilkoot Charlie's. Here's the story. The Quonset buildings were purchased from Army surplus in Seward. John Parker's father, Ken Parker, went to Seward by train in 1947 to purchase the Quonset building, which was erected on the site in 1948. The building served as the post office and Parker's store, which was the first department store in Spenard. The second Quonset building was purchased in 1949 to accommodate rapid growth. At that time, one building was the post office and the other was the store. The buildings had to be brought from Seward to Spenard by the Alaska Railroad because the Seward Highway had not yet been built. The Quonset buildings were replaced by new brick building in 1952. John Parker's mother, Nancy Parker, was appointed postmaster in 1948. She was the only postmaster Spenard ever had. In 1951 or 52, a new post office was built on Fireweed Lane. In an article dated August 9, 1949, in the Spenard Advertiser, a newsletter distributed to local residents and businesses, Nancy Parker wrote the following. Spenard business boom continues. A recent survey listed 21 home-owned businesses and 4 Anchorage-owned businesses in Spenard. Spenard is rapidly becoming self-sufficient. What would Joe Spenard think? Today, Spenard is considered one of Anchorage's more colorful communities with more than its share of characters. It occurs to me that Joe Spenard had a lot in common with modern-day Doug Hager, also known as Mr. Whitekeys, and I suspect that Joe Spenard would have enjoyed Mr. Whitekeys' Spenard show, The Whale Fat Follies. You know, the show the Spenard Chamber of Commerce doesn't want you to see. And until next time, this is Mike.